Alright, so your boy's been going back to the theater this month, and I've got to tell you, starting out pretty weak. So I saw Reminiscence, a Hugh Jackman picture, and here are a couple of notes. Here under editing, stupid, boring, awkward, rhythmless. There was an overcool slow-mo action scene that when it started was comedy gold. I was close to laughing a bit in theaters. Though to be fair, I believe I was the only single person in the screening, so that was cool. There's no willingness to actually explore its themes. Bad morals from the characters, which is justified in some lines by others because Hero Man Wolverine can't be bad. He's the perfect man who turned a bad woman into good woman who saved child and not do drug. A dull twist reveal, which I describe as impressively inconsequential. So about exploring the themes of memory and nostalgia in this world they built in this futuristic sci-fi-ish landscape of Miami. There is no real world building. So the premise is that global warming has turned Miami, among other seasides, into a Venice-like city on the water. And there's a rising divide between the elites who buy up the tall property and the people left below at the mercy of the rising waters, etc., But this never lends itself to the story whatsoever. There's one fight scene where they break through floors until it's underwater so they could have a super cool auditorium under the water set piece. But you could fit water into any setting if you have to utilize it this little. So besides being near water and traveling to places on boats and walking during the day because, see, everything's nocturnal now because the sun's too hot, even though if they didn't say that, you wouldn't be at fault for completely missing that. It doesn't feel like it's blistering hot out when it's sunlight. They're trying to invert the noir detective walking the streets at night because he's walking during the day, and you know how that just looks kind of unspectacular and lame and removes the mood from things. The acting was mixed. I mean, Hugh Jackman sometimes does his job. He's mostly just furrowing his brow and looking serious and being a manly action hero.
Where is she? Where is she? Where is she? Where is she? I don't know, baby. Where is she? Where is she?
But lots of bad acting too. Lots of extras that were pretty funny. The worst part of the script has got to be the atrocious narrator's dialogue. Because it's neo-noir. It's like a modern noir, but with a little of the old, like nostalgia. But yeah, how does a screenwriter working today present completely straight-faced Chandlerisms when parodies of this technique are outdated, and what's here is so half-baked? Here, let me bring some of these up, and we can go over them together. The past can haunt a man. That's what they say. That the past is just a series of moments. Some more unnecessary words and descriptors. A bead on the necklace of time.
A bead on the necklace of time. A bead on the necklace of time.
No such thing as a happy ending. All endings are sad, especially if the story was happy. I mean, I was pretty happy when the story ended. Memory is the boat that sails against its current. And I'm the oarsman. Memories are like perfume, better in small doses. I will say the movie looks good. It's a polished blockbuster and when viewed out of context, produces some nice frames. The problem here is motivation. See, ideally, the lighting, color, and camera work to create visuals that speak for the material. The cinematic language. But here the team in charge of cinematography seem to run without any direction. They don't serve the themes of nostalgia and never embrace the stylization that is the bread and butter of neo-noir. So even the money shots of Reminiscence are without resonance or impact. Alright, there was one big shocking reveal that got me, more than the film's boilerplate noir mystery plot. This was made by a woman. And yeah, I didn't research too much about the movie before, I just saw when the ending credits rolled. The film is written and directed by Lisa Joy, which was very shocking because it seems like the kind of movie made by an aging white man. For instance, the romance Hugh Jackman forms is portrayed solely through eroticism and lap dances. Speaking of creative choices, Yeah, there's a scene where they cut to a noticeably overwide shot because Hugh Jackman picked up a hammer and he's in a fight scene. And that's when I fucking realized it's just this shot to reference Old Boy. There was no reason to allude to that. He's fighting one other person. It's a one-on-one fight. They're not in a narrow hallway or space. It just wants you to remember good things and forget it. Also, I fear the genuine possibility that this is homaging the 2013 version of Old Boy.
Joseph Doucet.
Don't reference Old Boy and noir classics in this shallow way. See, it could have been a pastiche with purpose, forming a meta layer around its commentary on nostalgia and memory, manipulating the viewer's own memory of noir to affect their journey through the film. That'd be pretty cool, but it was serviceable enough that even though at some points I was tempted to just walk out and, cut this short and save time, I stayed to at least see, how they'd end it, what the reveal of the mystery is, but yeah. I had low expectations, and it did not surpass any of them. I give Reminiscence a 3 out of 10. Candyman.
Candyman.
So in anticipation for this release, I watched the original Candyman for the first time. Yes, even though from the very start my movie watching days were filled with horror and all the slasher classics, I never actually saw Candyman. It's one of those that just kind of slipped out of the radar. And while watching this thing now and judging it as a film, it's corny as fuck. It's hard to determine what exactly makes one slasher from the next become a cult icon, but one differentiating factor is obviously that he's a black slasher and living his best life doing it. I mean, look at the stance, the coat.
I came for you.
But also the movie is white as fuck and very confused in its themes. There's something going on with the danger of ghettos and the racial divide going on in America, and a kind of criticism of the snooty white university staff that engage with it to their peril. Also, this husband was really setting off some alarm for me, so I checked, and yeah, he's also the husband in Safe by Todd Haynes. Something about this guy just really works for detached, condescending husbands of valley wives, I guess. But anyway, we're here for the new so I'll keep this brief. I give the original Candyman a 5 out of 10. Sick kills, funny moments, creepy moments. So let's start with the review.
We hear you looking for Candyman, bitch.
With the reboot being helmed by a more black crew and creative team, there's something to look forward to. Candyman is a black horror icon, and so this follows in line with the surge of Jordan Peele and other black artists reclaiming and reinterpreting the genre and their place in it, which I find to be well overdue and a source of potentially great fresh injections to the genre. But how was Candyman 2021? Wasted potential. So sadly wasted, as it felt the ideas had existed somewhere in the script at one point, but it was butchered worse than Candyman's victims. And I mean literally, this movie was so heavily aiming for PG-13, I feel like we were all robbed by the R rating. Fragmented visuals that never meet with the current tone conveyed. And it failed at subject matter, which could have been met with a daring reinvention of Candyman, but nah. I like that it commits to being a sequel to the original Candyman, following its story in the modern day. But lore-wise, again, what a miss. They add the candy element in more thoroughly, which I thought was weird that it was completely non-existent in the original. But don't give any good sense to how this combines with the bees and the mirrors, and how this is Candyman's power, his multiple symbols and powers. And the very start of the movie is really weak. Like, the first leg of action is just improv conversations between the cast, all strung together by cheap jump scare style cuts. I mean, every transition between scenes is the sharp cut to something random that's making a noise. It knows it has to drag its dumb audience along with these non-scares because nobody cares about the story being told. But, well, usually this is just cynical and stupid. In this case, they're right. No one would be invested so far because nothing has happened but inconsequential banter with no sense of direction. Thankfully, the plot picks up and things start to have a logical progression. Thematically, it should have painted Candyman as the unfiltered rage of racial injustice of the past. Use Candyman's existence as a collective cultural fear to rise as an agent who brings the full horror of African American experience suddenly to the white upper class of Chicago, and implying an even wider scale past the film's events. And so this scarier, more monstrous portrayal of Candyman fits an understandable but evil form. Even the black characters facing traumatic pasts and microaggression in this modern art scene would have the sense to be against such an unfiltered explosion of fear and death that essentially wishes an eye for an eye for a long, dark, absurdly cruel history instead of removing it for our future. Like, there's a scene, and it's in the trailers, so I wouldn't consider it a spoiler, where 4 children are killed, literally 4 white children, at their school. And what's the follow-up to this? What is the repercussions of this tragic, unexplainable event? Well, there's zero follow-up. Zero sense of society's greater reaction to this. Wouldn't that be the point? To have the worsening state of the protagonist coincide with the more unhinged allegiance to the logic of Candyman? Increased preachings of how the new world under his fame and notoriety reflects the fear of a community being picked off, of no one being safe, of clutching your children against an evil that will relentlessly hunt them down with no mercy if they let their guard down for 1 second. Nah, let's condense that into 5 minutes of an ending sequence that treats this in the most ham-fisted, high school script level way. And then the storytelling of Candyman's lineage and this historical facet to his character is just buried in the fucking credits after the movie's over. So yeah, there was some real butchering in the storytelling aspect of the editing room. And they used this shadow puppet theater to represent a lot of the backstory and history and lore, which I guess looks cool and fits into that A24 horror, Babadook, etc. multimedia horror storytelling, but it didn't really make sense. There's a lot of artsy set pieces and buildings and architecture shown off, showing sort of the prestigious side of Chicago and its art scene. And one of the best shots in the movie is this upside down, phantasmagoric view of Chicago City in the fog. It's not used for anything. The film refuses to bolster that sense of cosmic unease. Which is disappointing because the Candyman they built here is sort of a cosmic horror villain. He can operate as fast as myth, and especially in the modern age, unlike in the original, where social media and everything exists. Obviously, bringing a power like that back, it will not be able to be buried again like it was before. You see how this could be horrifying in great ways, but the film only focuses on its small cast of characters, showing no real concern for anything outside of them, which is a very, very strange approach, completely antithetical to the themes, the horror that you're building up. There's some poor CGI. Speaking of the kills, they were all pretty much off screen, which again just made me think, why is this rated R? They censored every kill. One instance of CGI even ruined the best kill in the movie. One murder scene that would have been cool if the victim wasn't ragdolled around in a very cheesy way. The sad realization hits eventually that the direction of the movie itself is cynical and kind of pretentious, even when its subject matter is critiquing cynicism and pretentiousness, especially toward black artists. It shows contempt for a lot of its victims, and even the set design and background elements are what I'd call douchey. There's a running motif of good people listen to good music and bad people listen to bad music. I'm not joking, like there's a pretty scathing hit at Fiona Apple.
Yeah, let's give a quick shout out to
Fiona
Apple.
where they play a song off Fetch the Bolt Cutters in the context of a very, very snooty white art critic's apartment that I don't feel is earned. What the fuck did Fiona Apple do to you? Goddamn. And bullied black girl at the school has bad brains stitched on her backpack. Yay. But these are all good music. Like, why place them selectively in a context that makes them divisive? And I am not joking, when the main character goes to see his mother later on in the film, there's a painting on the wall with "mother" written on it. Like, holy shit, that is embarrassing mise-en-scène. How many films can you say have embarrassing mise-en-scène? Embarrassing mise-en-scène. I was carried through the movie pretty smoothly by the solid horror mood provided by sound design and some of the shots, to where I was willing to give it a neutrally mid opinion. But what sours things is that it did come with a message and aimed to have artistic value, then thoroughly failed at it. It's just a generic Blumhouse-style horror release with a screenwriter who's been buried into the walls by studio changes, yelling muffled screams to the audience of what they meant to tackle. And that's off-putting, to say the least. You know what I did love? The token gay couple actually made it out unharmed. Like, you're just waiting for one of them to do the thing and then get them both killed because they're the nice supportive gays in the slasher movie. But I think the script outwardly denies that, which I loved as a little detail. Like, they know not to even fuck around with Candyman, which again, actually fits thematically into what the monster represents. There's a thread in this movie that only white people are playing the mirror game and getting killed. And not just black, but multiple minorities display greater apprehension of Candyman and so avoid fucking around with mirrors. And I believe this represents how these groups are familiar with the dangers Candyman embodies, in a way white people just aren't. When the 4 girls at school do the Candyman challenge, the Asian one in the group nopes out of there midway through, like a joke, and so lo and behold, she's the one who survives. It's weird seeing a movie that pays attention to little subtle details like this, but misses the glaring issues plaguing everything else. Oh yeah, and also another thing that I discovered reading around on the movie, I guess the main character's name is said in full 5 times during the entire movie, the last time being, again, when Candyman is unleashed in his full form, so that's a pretty cool detail. Little meta horror for the audience. It tackles social issues on the level of group strata, but holds an individualistically narrow perspective, which is antithetical to its themes and messages, therefore neutering all of its ability to comment on it. Also, I realized during the last act that this is essentially an origin story movie for Candyman. So it took till his last appearance to actually be a scary, imposing horror villain, while throughout the film, he's like a neutered, emaciated version of the original. It's creepy in its own way. The guy who plays the reflection version we see of Candyman is pretty creepy. He has the creepy smile and all. But it does make this feel a lot more like a slasher or some supernatural murder ghost story than the real horror of Candyman that this thing is trying to elevate him to. Like cosmic, like I keep saying, the cosmic horror. Let him be that, not just at the very, very end of the movie and then the movie ends immediately. Like, that's fucking lame, dude. I was not expecting it to be worse than the original, but it aimed for more and failed more grandly at it. So yeah, I give Candyman a 4 out of 10. So what do you guys think? You agree? You disagree? Did these movies give you a spook, give you a fright, make you horny? Anything you got out of them? Anyway, next we got a bunch of movies I'm going to talk about for the month of September. All the movies I saw so many movies, more movies than you could possibly imagine. Think of a number, it's more than that. Can you believe it? It's impossible, it's crazy. So stick around, I'll just be here till next time. Bye.